3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Welcome to Roots of Reality. I'm your host, Ben Baumann, and today we're going to be talking about Phase 3, the Rise of Mammals. So to start, 530 million years ago, life would finally occur on land. Before this point, there was only animal life in the ocean. And finally, our ancestors had developed the ability to walk on land. 220 million years ago, the first mammals, our ancestors, and the first dinosaurs would occur. Later, 65 million years ago, life on Earth would change forever. So to set the stage a little bit, at this point in time, dinosaurs rule the Earth. They are the dominant creatures that inhabit the planet, and our mammal ancestors are not at all on the top of the food chain. But one event would change that forever. So 65 million years ago, a small asteroid landed on Earth. This asteroid landed right off of the coast of Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula, killing 50% of life on our planet. This would completely wipe out the dinosaurs, but somehow our primate ancestors and other mammals would survive. To understand exactly what this asteroid was, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail. This asteroid created a crater about 93 miles wide or 150 kilometers, and it was 12 miles deep or 19 kilometers. Also, it just happened to hit the worst possible location, or one of the worst possible locations on the planet. Right where it hit was a spot that contained lots of polluting substances, and when the asteroid hit, tons of debris came flying up into our atmosphere, creating massive pollution, blocking the sun rays, etc., creating massive climate change. As a result, the Earth became significantly colder, and not only did animal life die from the impact of the asteroid, but the change in climate made it too cold for many creatures to survive. Therefore, the consequences of this event is that without it happening, we would not be here today, and the descendants of dinosaurs would be instead. So, ironically, we should be thanking an asteroid for hitting the Earth for our existence today, because without it, who knows what would happen. After this, our mammal ancestors would eventually go on to evolve to become what we are today. Before I go into a little bit more detail about sort of the timeline of the changes and what led to us being here when it comes to human evolution, I think it's important first to point out what exactly I mean by evolution. What is evolution? I think there could be a little bit more clarity about what exactly scientists mean when they say evolution. So, essentially, evolution states that organisms come from other organisms and changed over time to form a new species. Also, evolution states that all organisms share a common ancestor. So how this process works is that a species evolves due to what's called natural selection, which states that certain characteristics improve the survivability of an animal, thus being passed on from one generation to another. These characteristics come about due to the environment of which an organism inhabits. Therefore, the organism which best fits their environment are more likely to survive. These evolutionary changes are caused by genetic mutations in an animal's DNA. For example, when a child is born, their parents' DNA is not copied perfectly. It actually contains errors, and these errors are what we call genetic mutations. And over extremely long periods of time, these genetic mutations build up, and they can result in the occurrence of a different species. Now, this is all assuming the organism carrying these mutations survives to reproduce in the first place. Ultimately, though, the survival of an animal that has these mutations is not random. It's actually based on whether a mutation helps the organism survive. Some mutations will and some won't. And the more likely it is to help an animal survive, the more likely it is that this gene will get passed on because that animal will live. There are other factors at play as well, of course, though. For instance, some creatures just die on accident. For example, there can be an animal that has a great genetic mutation, but maybe it gets hit by an asteroid. All of a sudden, that mutation's gone. There's lots of chance at play as well. Also, populations migrate and change environments, which can have an impact on mutations that may occur or may be useful. So there are lots of things outside of the realm of natural selection that dictate the survival of a species as well. But at the end of the day, essentially, it's all about survivability, which can increase an animal's chances of having offspring. So finally, we get to the evolution of our mammal ancestors eventually leading to us. 15 million years ago, our ancestors would evolve from monkeys to become apes. And 6.6 million years ago, this was the last common ancestor that we actually shared with modern-day chimpanzees. So from that point on, we diverged from chimps, and we were all of a sudden on a completely different evolutionary path than our very close chimp relatives, who we share about 98.8% of our DNA with. Then 4 million years ago, our ape ancestors would develop the ability to walk upright on two legs. This is called bipedalism. This is a very important characteristic when it comes to the evolution of humans. The ability to stand upright and see things off in the distance, things that could be hunting you, or just the ability also to stand upright saves energy. When you're moving around, it's actually more efficient and you have better stamina. So it can allow people, for example, then to hunt creatures and actually outrun them because they have longer stamina than other creatures. Other important developments when it comes to human evolution and our ape ancestors is the ability to manipulate tools, basically to take an object and to use it for a purpose. Also, just generally speaking, the increasing intelligence of our ancestors, from monkeys to apes to people. Each phase of evolution leading to us would increase the intelligence of our ancestors. Another important characteristic is our teeth. Our teeth developed the ability to start grinding vegetation. Therefore, our diet became more diverse over time, where we can start eating more things besides meat. And then this leads us to about 2 million years ago, when our ape ancestors would become the first human species that we know that has ever existed, called Homo erectus. And from this point on, we then get on to the path of human beings. Therefore, to wrap this up, we have, as a species, we have been very, very lucky. We have survived so many things, from the formation of the universe to our planet just being in the right spot to have life, to the evolution of life eventually leading us surviving asteroid impacts and other extinctions that were actually even worse. 250 million years ago, there was an extinction that wiped out 95% of life on the planet. Our ancestors, whatever creatures they may have been at the time, survived. And as a result of that survival, we are here today. We are the result of this process, and we got incredibly lucky to be here. All the things that had to go right, all the things that had to happen. Therefore, don't take it for granted. It's easy to get caught up in life and see these things as just kind of irrelevant, but it's actually our past. It's where we come from, and we can ignore it if we want to, but by ignoring it, we're just really taking for granted how lucky we are and just how amazing it is that all of these things led to us being here. This is your moment. This is your story. Make the most of it. Enjoy it. And until next time, remember, 13.8 billion years led to you.